the night of whispers. The first sound that woke me wasn't the alarm clock, or the phone, or even the creak of my old wooden house settling in the night. It was something far heavier, dull, rhythmic, and close. Thud, thud, thud. At first I thought it was a dream, the kind that feels too real but fades once you open your eyes. But the sound didn't fade. It grew. A deep pounding echoed through the darkness, like someone hammering from far below. I sat up, heart racing. My room was pitch black, except for the faint glow of the clock on my nightstand. 12:06 a.m. The air felt thick, stale, almost damp. I tried to listen carefully, holding my breath. That's when I realized the hammering wasn't coming from outside. It was coming from beneath me. Curiosity won over fear for a moment. I got out of bed, each step heavier than the last. The noise was muffled now, like fists striking something soft. Soil? My mind played tricks on me, whispering impossible thoughts. Then, just as suddenly as it began, the sound stopped. I bent down, pressing my ear against the wooden floor. Silence. But then, one last dull thump. And faintly, beneath it, the sound of dirt being shoveled, covering something, or someone. I didn't sleep after that. I must have dozed off sitting upright, because the next thing I remember was waking to a different sound. A gentle tapping. Not hammering this time, but lighter. Tap, tap, tap. I turned my head, half expecting it to be rain against the window. But when I looked, the curtains were still, the glass dry. The sound came again, sharper this time. Tap, tap, tap. Then I realized it wasn't coming from the window at all. It was behind me. There, on the far side of the room, stood my full-length mirror. The reflection was hazy in the dim light, but I could clearly see movement, a faint distorted outline of a hand pressed against the glass. From the inside. Jade. My breath caught. I blinked, and it was gone. The tapping stopped, replaced by a long, slow drag of fingers across the mirror's surface. I didn't move. For a full minute, I just stared, praying I was still dreaming. And when I finally turned away, something cold brushed the back of my neck. The next morning, I told myself it was just exhaustion. Too many night shifts, too much caffeine, too little sleep. I went about my day pretending nothing happened. By the time I came home, the sunlight had faded, and the quiet emptiness of the house wrapped around me again. I made dinner, scrolled through my phone, and tried not to look at the mirror. But curiosity has a way of clawing its way back in. As I scrolled through my camera roll that night, I noticed a new photo I didn't remember taking. The thumbnail showed a dark shape. My room. My heart skipped. I opened it. It was a picture of me, lying in bed, eyes closed. The bed sheets, the mirror, the clock, everything in the frame was exactly how it looked the night before. Except for one detail, there was a figure standing beside the bed. A shadow, faceless and long-limbed, leaning over me. I dropped the phone, pulse thundering in my ears. I live alone. I wanted to delete the photo, but when I picked the phone back up, the screen was black. My reflection looked back at me faintly from the dark glass. Then, tap, tap, tap. From somewhere behind me. That night, I didn't sleep at all. The hammering didn't return, but the mirror, it never stayed quiet for long. Sometimes I'd hear a faint knock, sometimes a whisper that sounded like my own voice. It wasn't until dawn that I noticed the faint smudge on the mirror's surface, the outline of a handprint pressed flat against the inside of the glass. And just beneath it, scrawled faintly in condensation, were 3 words: "Let me out, the house that never sleeps." It's strange how silence can be louder than sound. After that night with the mirror, I couldn't sleep anymore. Every time I closed my eyes, I'd hear whispers, too soft to understand, but too close to ignore. So, I started staying awake. At first, it was exhaustion that kept me up, then fear, and then something worse, curiosity. I spent hours scrolling through online forums about haunted mirrors and cursed dreams, trying to convince myself I wasn't losing my mind. But the more I read, the more everything pointed back to one thing. Something had crossed over. It wasn't just a dream anymore. One night, the ringing of my phone broke the silence. The clock read 3:17 a.m. The same time, every single night. I hesitated before answering. It was my wife's number. My breath caught in my throat. My wife had been dead for 2 years. Her voice came through the speaker, trembling but clear. "There's someone in the house." For a second, I forgot how to breathe. The tone, the fear. It was exactly how she had sounded that night, before the police found her. I whispered her name. "Anna?" Silence. Then, faintly, I heard it. The floor creaking, the sound of someone moving in another room, a muffled cry, and then the line went dead. I stared at the phone, my reflection caught faintly in the black screen. For a moment, I saw her face behind mine, pale, eyes wide, as if warning me. The mirror across the room quivered. The next morning, I couldn't take it anymore. I packed my things and drove out to the old cabin we used to visit before she died. I told myself it was just to get away, to clear my head. But deep down, I knew why I was really there. Because I'd started dreaming again. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw flashes. A woman standing in the hallway, her face blurred, the sound of hammering again. Closer this time, the smell of dirt and smoke. And each time I woke up, I wasn't sure I'd ever really fallen asleep. I'd look around the room and notice small things that had changed. My phone moved, my bag unzipped, the door slightly ajar. Once I woo, key to find footprints in the dust by the window. Bare footprints, leading up to the bed. That night, I tried something desperate. I set up my phone camera, propped it on the dresser, and hit record before trying to sleep. I needed to know what was happening while I was awake. When I reviewed the footage the next morning, my blood ran cold. At 12:07 a.m., I could see myself lying still, breathing, but motionless. Then the camera flickered. A shape appeared at the edge of the bed. A woman's silhouette, head tilted unnaturally to the side. She leaned over me, her hair falling across her face. One rotted hand pressed to my chest. The other covered my mouth. I could see my own body struggling beneath her. The clock on the nightstand flashed. 12:07. The video ended abruptly. I turned to the clock beside my bed. It read 12:06. Then, from inside the closet, came the slow, deliberate sound of a door creaking open. I couldn't move. My body was frozen in terror. My mind screamed for me to run, but my limbs refused to obey. The sound grew louder, the rusty hinges groaning like a whisper. When the door finally swung open, there was nothing inside, just darkness. But the smell of damp earth filled the room, and on the floor, half buried in dust, lay a broken photograph of me and Anna, taken the week before she died. Only now, her eyes were blacked out. On the back of the photo, written in a trembling hand, were the words, "I never sleep, but I keep waking up." That night, I sat awake until dawn, staring at the closet. The shadows seemed to move on their own, bending, shifting, forming shapes I didn't want to recognize. And just before sunrise, I saw it again. A faint handprint on the mirror, pressed from the inside. Except this time, it wasn't mine. The voices of the forgotten, sleep had become impossible. Every night, something new tried to break through, into the silence. Whispers in the mirror, footsteps from the closet, the sound of soil shifting under the floorboards. But what terrified me most wasn't what I heard. It was what I started expecting, to hear. Because after weeks of horror, your mind begins to crave the very thing it fears, just to know it's real. And that night, it all became real. I was sitting in the dark living room, every light turned off, when I heard it, the soft giggle of a baby. It was faint at first, like an echo carried by the wind. I froze, listening. Then it came again, closer, clearer, and chillingly innocent. There was no baby in the house. There hadn't been one since Anna died. The sound drifted down the hallway, followed by a slow pitter-patter of tiny feet on the wooden floor. I turned toward the sound, my heart pounding so hard I could barely breathe. Then, right behind me, a whisper, so close I could feel the breath on my ear. "Daddy?" I spun around. No one was there, just the faint sound of a music box playing from the next room. I grabbed my flashlight and went toward the sound. The beam cut through the dark, illuminating the door to the guest room, the one that used to be our son's nursery before everything fell apart. The door was cracked open. I pushed it gently. Inside, the old crib stood against the far wall. Dust clung to the rails like cobwebs. And in the center of the crib, sitting perfectly upright, was a baby monitor, glowing red. Through the static, a soft voice whispered, "Daddy, check for monsters under my bed." My breath hitched. The room was freezing cold now. I crouched slowly, lowering the flashlight to the floor. And that's when I saw it. A face. His face, staring back at me from under the bed. Eyes wide, shaking, whispering, "Daddy, there's somebody on my back." I stumbled backward, hitting the wall. The light flickered. For just a second, I saw a tall shadow standing behind the crib. Long arms, head bent low, its fingers brushing the ceiling. Then everything went dark. When I came to, I was lying on the floor. My phone was ringing beside me. The screen said "Home Security Alert." The voice on the other end was calm, professional. "Sir, your front door was opened at 1:03 a.m. Is anyone else in the house?" I tried to speak, but my throat felt dry. I whispered, "No, I live alone." A pause. Then the operator said quietly, "Sir, we're seeing someone standing behind you." The line cut out. I don't remember running, but I must have. I woke up hours later in my car, parked halfway down the old highway leading out of town. My phone had dozens of missed calls, all from an unknown number. When I opened the camera app by accident, I froze. There was a new picture there, the same bedroom, the same bed, and me sleeping. But now there was a woman beside me. Her hair hung over her face and a child's hand rested on her shoulder. And behind them, standing tall in the reflection of the mirror, was something pale and grinning. For days I tried to tell myself it was over, that I'd escaped whatever haunted that house. But every night, something new found me. A sound, a whisper, a knock. One night I heard my name being called from outside my motel window. A woman's voice. "Come home," it said softly. "It's safe now." I looked out into the dark. Nothing. Just the faint reflection of my own face in the glass. I was about to turn away when, behind my reflection, I saw her. Anna, smiling, holding our son. And then, a second reflection appeared beside hers. Me, but not me. A pale version, hollow-eyed, grinning. The next morning, I packed and left. I drove for hours without stopping, only pulling over when I saw a small roadside diner just before dawn. The parking lot was empty. As I got out, my phone buzzed. A text message. No number, just the words, "We're not in the house anymore." Then, from inside the diner, a faint sound. Laughter. A baby's laughter. That was 3 nights A. Go. Now, every mirror I pass, every dark window I see my reflection in, it smiles a split second too late. And sometimes, late at night, when I wake up without remembering falling asleep, I can hear it again. The soft sound of hammering. And underneath it, the whisper of dirt. Covering the coffin. Covering me.